midnight screams.
My ex-boyfriend always hated our dog. He probably would have taken her too if she weren't so ugly. If Lulu had been one of those cute, fluffy things, a poodle or a corgi, I'm sure he would have fought for her, along with everything else in the apartment. But Lulu was just a wrinkly old mutt, and for that, and for so many other things, I will be forever grateful she was mine. I don't want to talk too much about my ex, because this story isn't about him. But I need to explain why I was driving across the country in the middle of the night with a few possessions I owned crammed into the back of a beat-up van. My ex and I had been together for 6 years, but we never got married. He said marriage was an outdated institution. I pretended to be okay with it. Was I angry? Yes and no. Yes, I was angry, but I kept quiet because I loved him. 5 months ago, he told me he wanted to break up. He just said it. No hesitation, no tears. His voice was completely flat. I was in the kitchen, eating a bowl of cereal. He was standing in the hallway. "I want to break up," he said. And then he picked up his briefcase and left for work, leaving me with my cereal slowly turning to mush. Lulu heard me crying and came to comfort me, rubbing her head against my leg. She stayed with me for hours that day. I called in sick to work, just sitting on the couch and watching the sun move across the walls of the home I thought was ours. The thing is, my ex made a lot more money than I did. He was happy to pay the rent, happy to buy the furniture, happy to pay for our new car, happy to pay for this and that, filling our apartment with very nice things. When I started moving my things out of the apartment, the things that were actually mine, I realized I owned less than I had 6 years ago. All my belongings fit in the back of the van. I didn't have a chair or a table. Everything, on paper, was his. I didn't have plates or silverware. We'd thrown out my old set of dishes when he bought a new one a few years back. I didn't have a single rug. He'd bought us a new, expensive one. I remember I always wanted to let Lulu up on the bed so we could cuddle and watch movies. But my ex was dead set against it. "Stop treating a dog like a person," he'd say. "She's lucky to be in this house at all." I had adopted Lulu when she was just a puppy. She had been a stray, found rummaging through a tipped-over trash can by animal control. She waddled when she walked. She snored when she slept. But she had the kindest heart. Whenever she saw children, she would flop onto her back, belly up, and wait for them to come over and pet her. Then she would smother them with sloppy kisses. We hadn't even trained her to do that. One afternoon about a year ago, Lulu walked up behind my ex and licked his ankle. He turned and kicked her, right in the head. It wasn't hard enough to hurt her, not really, but I should have known then. Looking back, it's amazing what you can convince yourself to believe about a person. My van was packed. I had quit my part-time job, and now I was on my way to my sister's place in Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I'd be living for the foreseeable future. It was a 10-hour drive, just me and Lulu in the front of the van. I was driving through golden fields and pastures where cows grazed, taking a smaller highway to avoid the heavy traffic since I wasn't used to the vehicle. After seeing the gorgeous scenery, I knew I'd made the right choice. I'd had to pack everything myself, so by the time I finally hit the road, it was already late afternoon. After about 4 hours of driving, the sky began to darken. Out on the highway, just as the sun was sinking behind the mountains, I heard a metallic clank from underneath the van. Suddenly, the vehicle started to shudder violently. It felt like the steering was fighting me. I had to grip the wheel hard to keep it straight. I couldn't see out the back window. My boxes blocked the view. But mercifully, I saw a place to pull over. Once I was off the main road, I brought the van to a stop on the shoulder. I'd seen a sign planted in the dirt. Richard and Sons Auto Repair, 1 divided by 4 mile. I know you've probably heard this story before. A car breaks down in the middle of nowhere. A young woman, all alone. Maybe she meets some strange man who says something like, "Well now, looks like you're lost, little lady," while his eyes crawl all over her. But it wasn't like that at all. "Good evening, ma'am," said a perfectly normal-looking old man sitting inside the shop. "What can I do for you?" "Oh, and who's this little sweetheart?" he asked, noticing Lulu at my feet. The owner's name was Richard Meadows. He was a lovely, well-dressed older man. His gray hair was neatly combed, and his white button-down shirt was crisp. He ran the place with his 2 sons, who were waiting in the garage. "My boys, Abe and Dean, will take a look, and then we can get your insurance on the phone," Richard said, as we walked into the garage. "Abe, get the keys." I handed my keys to the son named Abe, who was pale and pudgy, with a shaved head dotted with moles. He seemed shy, just giving a short nod as he took the keys. Next to Abe was Dean, who was devastatingly handsome. He had a thick mop of dark blonde hair, a sharp jawline, and broad shoulders under a denim shirt. He looked like he'd walked right out of a teen movie. The thought made me blush. Dean walked with me out to the van. He pulled out a clipboard, clicked his pen, and started writing. "So the trouble started all of a sudden?" he asked. I explained what happened, stammering like a high school girl. He just smiled and nodded the whole time. His voice was soothing, like a doctor with a patient. "Yeah, okay. I think we can handle that. And like my dad said, don't you worry. We'll make sure the insurance company covers it." I thanked him, trying to hide my flushed face. "Good thing you've got a bodyguard here," Dean said, smiling down at Lulu. "What's his name?" "It's a she," I said, "and her name is Lulu." "Well, hello there, Lulu." When he bent down to pet her, she backed away, bared her teeth, and started to growl. "Lulu," I said, "be nice." Dean just laughed. "It's okay. She's a good girl. Probably just protecting her mom, right? Can't say I'd trust a random mechanic either. No, it's not you. It's just my boyfriend, or my ex-boyfriend, I guess. I don't know. I think he made her wary of men." Dean's brow furrowed for a moment. Then he gave a small, knowing smirk and a nod, as if he understood completely. I was grateful he didn't ask any more questions. He told me to have a seat, that he'd take it from here. When I went back inside the office, his father, Richard, was already smoothing things over with my insurance company. "They're taking care of everything," he said. There was nothing for me to do but wait. A TV in the corner was playing an episode of Judge Judy. Richard sat across from me in the waiting area and petted Lulu while he told me about himself and his family. His wife had passed away about a year and a half ago, in her sleep, he said. A blessing, I suppose. It had been hard, but he and his sons were close. They'd helped him get through it. Lulu must have sensed his sadness, because she warmed up to Richard more than she usually did with strange men. "I hope you don't mind me saying," Richard said, scratching Lulu's head, "but I feel better knowing you've got a dog with you." "Why's that?" "Well, I don't mean to alarm you, but there have been some incidents lately." He said he didn't want to cause me any undue anxiety, but that over the last year and a half, 7 women had been found dead in the woods just past the cornfields off the highway. "All of them like you young, traveling alone," Richard said. "So it's good you've got this little one here." He brought his face close to Lulu's, and she gave him kisses on his cheek. "What a good girl. Such a sweetheart. I mean, I appreciate the warning," I said. "Of course. And like I said, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm sure everything will be just fine. No, you've been so kind, all of you," I added. Dean was so helpful." "That's the world-famous Richard & Sons customer service," Richard chuckled. "I do mean it, though. I almost asked if Dean had a girlfriend." "I know. It sounded crazy and desperate, asking a stranger. But before I could embarrass myself, the other son, Abe, rushed into the office and said something to his dad." Richard nodded, then turned to me. "Well, looks like you're all set. I don't need to pay or sign anything?" "Nope. It's all taken care of. I'll give you a receipt for your insurance records, but you're good to go. Come on, let's get you and Lulu on your way." On the way out, I debated giving Dean my number, weighing the risk of humiliation against the regret of doing nothing. I wasn't used to being single again. I had no idea what to do. It turned out the decision was made for me. When we got to the van, Dean was gone. "Dean leave?" Richard asked. Abe nodded. "He had a date." His voice was barely a whisper. "Another one? Can't say I'm surprised." Of course, I thought. What did I expect? Just because Dean worked in a small-town garage didn't change the fact that he was gorgeous and charming. Girls probably fell all over him, imagining him taking apart a complex engine, then ripping his shirt off, his muscles gleaming with sweat, and so on and so on. I felt like an idiot. "It was a pleasure meeting you," Richard said. "And you too, Miss Lulu." The son, Abe, fumbled in his pocket for my keys while Richard bent down to give Lulu one last pat. I took the keys from Abe and smiled. "Thank you," I said. He smiled back but held my gaze. And for a split second, a chill ran down my spine. Something I couldn't explain. "Drive safe," he said. The road was incredibly dark that night. My sister would call it country dark, but I'd call it horror movie dark. The small highway must have only been busy during the day because I only saw another car every now and then. The cornfields lining the road rustled under a cloudy sky that hid the moon. In the distance, the wail of a train cut through the silence, sounding to me more like a muffled scream. I don't know if I was just spooked by Richard's story, or if there really was something lurking out there, but I kept getting the feeling I was being watched from the fields. It felt like I was driving into the mouth of a monster. Up ahead, the cornfields ended. Then there was a vast, dark forest. The moment we entered the trees, Lulu started barking. I swear I almost crashed the van. "Jesus, Lulu, calm down." She was frantic, whipping her head from side to side, barking at whatever she saw in the darkness. "Lulu, settle down, girl." But I couldn't settle down either. A knot had formed in my throat. 7 women found dead in the woods just past the cornfields. My grip on the wheel was shaky. I wasn't used to driving a van, and the darkness was absolute, swallowing the headlights. I could only see a few feet in front of me. I tried the radio. Static. I flipped through the channels, then thought better of it and shut it off. It was better to have silence in case of what? My mind was racing. It wasn't silent though, because every few minutes, Lulu would lose it again. She was clawing at the seat and the window, barking and growling like she was fighting an invisible demon and trying to get out. I looked out the window, but there was nothing but blackness on either side of the road. Blackness and the vague shapes of trees, telephone poles, and bushes that looked like crouching monsters. We finally crossed into South Carolina. We were out of the rural areas, and I started to see the lights of passing trucks. Lulu began to calm down then, but for the past 3 hours, she hadn't relaxed for a moment, especially when we passed a deserted stretch of land. I could feel her tense up. Every now and then, she'd lift her head as if she saw someone just outside the window, keeping pace with us. She stayed on edge, but I stopped paying much attention. I told myself she was just stressed from the long trip. By the end of it, she looked exhausted. I could see it in her eyes. I hadn't slept at all the night before, and I was exhausted too. Lulu's barking had jolted me awake, but it hadn't made me more alert. I felt jittery, like I'd had too much coffee. My eyes darted from side to side, and I felt like I could crash at any moment. My sister had texted before she went to bed to say she'd left the key under the mat. It was around 3 a.m. I parked the van and started to get out. As I did, Lulu sat bolt upright. "Okay, girl, we're here. You can rest now." The dome light came on as I gathered my things. I could hear heavy breathing. It was rapid and panting, like after a long run. "Okay, calm down," I said, grabbing my bag and sitting up. "What's wrong with you?" I froze. Lulu was right beside me. She was staring into the back of the van. Her mouth was closed, no tongue out, no panting. She was calm and focused, her breathing slow and steady. The sound wasn't coming from her. That breathing wasn't Lulu's. It was coming from the back of the van. At that moment, Lulu bared her teeth and let out a low growl. "Okay, girl," I said, trying to stay calm. My body was trembling, completely out of my control. Let's just go inside. Let's go." I fumbled with the door handle, almost falling as I stepped outside. I tried to get my phone out to call the police, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even unlock the screen. Lulu jumped out after me, staying close. She was in a low, predatory stance, her head down, staying right at my heels. I backed away, facing the van. Lulu moved with me, positioning herself in front of me, between me and the vehicle. I finally got the phone unlocked. I was about to hit the emergency call button when I heard something move inside the van. A metallic click. The back door, I realized. I had locked it, but it could be opened from the inside. The night was pitch black. The only light came from a single streetlight down at the corner. Everyone was inside their homes, fast asleep. I was completely alone in the dark. I heard something scratching at the back door from inside. Then, a metallic thunk as the latch was released. The door opened slowly, as if the creature inside was testing to see if it was safe. I hit the call button just as the door flew open. 911. What is your emergency? But I couldn't speak. I was paralyzed. The door swung open so hard it bounced back shut, and a naked torso fell out. A mess of blonde hair glinted in the darkness as the figure stood up. My knees almost gave out. It was Dean. "Hello," I said into the phone. I need help. Someone. He was in my van. Please send the police." Lulu barked and lunged forward. "Oh my God," Dean said, shaking out his arms and legs. "Will somebody shut that dog up?" He was drenched in sweat, wearing nothing but a pair of boxer shorts. He looked sick, animalistic. "All damn night, just bark, bark, bark," he sighed, stretching his arms. And then I saw he was holding a knife. With his other hand, he slicked his sweaty hair back from his forehead. "Hiding in a hot-ass van for hours with all your useless junk. I had to take my clothes off. It was so hot, and all I could hear was that goddamn barking. Please send help," I said into the phone, repeating my sister's address over and over. "Please, he has a weapon." "Oh, does he have a knife? Does he really? Poor baby." Dean started walking forward, aiming the weapon at Lulu, flipping the knife from hand to hand with practiced ease. Every time I was about to make a move, this bitch would start barking. "Dean, please, don't. I don't know what you want, but please. You should be grateful. You know why?" He wagged the knife at me like he was scolding me. "You'd never have a chance with me, so the fact that I chose you tonight is basically an act of charity." "Okay," I said, willing to say whatever he wanted to hear. "Okay, I'm sorry. You want the truth? I don't even want you. You're a 6, maybe a 7. But my little brother, he thought you were hot, so I figured, okay, I'll grab you for him. I'm a good brother, right? That's what good brothers do. They help each other out. I want his first time to be special. No, I know. I know you're a good brother." I kept the phone pressed to my ear, praying they could still hear me. This was supposed to be easy. So easy. It would have been over by now. But no. Her Majesty here had to bark and bark and bark. He gripped the knife tighter, crouching as he moved closer. He was aiming for Lulu. "So go ahead and cry on the phone, but tell them your dog is dead too, because this bitch has it coming." "No!" Dean lunged, slashing the knife at Lulu. She yelped and was thrown aside as the blade cut a long gash down her back. Her small body landed in a heap on the curb, but then came a scream. It was Dean's. He stumbled back, dropping the knife. Shit. Oh God, my hand. Even in the dark, I could see the fresh blood that now stained Lulu's back from a deep wound, but I could also see her spit a human hand onto the pavement like a child's toy. "I'll kill you!" Dean screamed, blood gushing from his wrist. With his good arm, he bent down to pick up the knife and started toward Lulu. But Lulu was faster. She was already moving. She launched herself forward, her own blood creating a red arc in the air as she flew. This time, she went for his face. A severed hand. That's all the police needed for a DNA match. It only took a few days. They found that Dean's DNA matched the 7 bodies found in the woods. The police showed me a picture of Dean in the hospital. His face was a mangled ruin of bruises and blood, held together by stitches. That night, when the police arrived outside my sister's house, they found him barely alive, bleeding out from his neck. As for Lulu and me, I had carried her inside. They found us on the kitchen floor. Lulu was losing a lot of blood, lying motionless in my lap, while I whispered in her ear, "I love you, Lulu. I love you so much." A short time later, Dean's brother Abe was arrested as an accomplice. At a press conference a few days later, the police chief said that for the last year and a half, the brothers had been setting traps on the highway to disable passing cars and force them to stop. Most of the time, they would fix the cars. It was just a scam to get business for their family's shop. But if the driver was a young, attractive woman, they would follow her and corner her in the deserted area past the cornfields. And in the case of this last would-be victim, it seems the brothers got careless, the chief said at the press conference. If the young woman had not been accompanied by her pit bull, Lulu, I fear. I slammed my laptop shut. I didn't need to hear the rest. I later saw a picture online of Richard, shielding his face from the press as they swarmed him. There was no evidence he was involved in the killings. He had seemed genuinely shocked when the police showed up at his shop. I felt sorry for the old man. He had been so kind. I can't imagine what he was going through. The chief had said the brothers started their spree about a year and a half ago, right around the time their mother died. The coincidence sent a chill down my spine. Richard has said his wife died of natural causes, peacefully in her sleep. I want to believe that. I want to believe the brothers didn't have anything to do with their mother's death, and that they only started their killing spree after her funeral. For Richard's sake, after all he's been through, I hope they didn't do anything to their mother. It feels strange to be in a new place after everything that happened. It feels like my old life was years ago. My ex texted me once to check in after he saw the story on the news. "Hope you're okay," it read. The old me would have spent hours agonizing over how to reply, but this time I responded immediately. "I'm fine," I wrote back. I saw the 3 dots appear as he started to type a reply, but then they disappeared. That night, the local news was all about Lulu. They were doing a special tribute to her. Normally, I wouldn't watch anything related to the case. It was all too raw. I would have to testify in court, and it was going to be a long process. I just wanted to avoid it as much as possible. But I always made sure to watch the segments about Lulu. A moment of celebration today as Lulu the pit bull was discharged from the hospital, the news anchor said. A crowd had gathered at the veterinary hospital that afternoon to cheer for Lulu. There was footage of her waddling out, looking bewildered at the police officers, news crews, reporters, and doctors who surrounded her. I was walking beside her, looking just as awkward. "See, Lulu," I said, as we watched the news together that night, stroking the long, stitched-up scar on her back. "That's you and me on TV. See, baby." Lulu, who had been asleep, lifted her head. Tired of all the fuss, she seemed unimpressed by her fame. She let out a heavy sigh and rested her head back on my stomach, getting back to the business of napping. After the news was over, I called Lulu. She went out for a quick potty break and then followed me to the bedroom. As I was getting the bed ready, Lulu curled up in her usual spot on the floor. "No. Come on, pretty girl." She looked up at me innocently, her front paws crossed. I patted the bed. "This is your spot from now on. Up here." She made a little noise, her tail thumping against the floor. Then she awkwardly climbed onto the bed, still a little sore from her injuries. When I turned out the light, Lulu was curled up at my feet, her head resting on my leg. "Comfortable?" I asked. She let out a slow breath, a soft growl of contentment. "Get used to it, beautiful," I said. "You deserve so much more.